before to this computer. What is up, guys? We just went through the whole rigmarole of getting everything set up, and you guys luckily dodged that bullet. So, we are going to be talking about muscle tonight. You're like, oh man, Stevie, we talk about muscle a lot. It's because it's super duper important, come to find out. And I am going to tell you why tonight and give you a bunch of good tidbits on like kind of some of the reasons why we do what we do here, okay? And give you a little bit of mindset around it as well. So we are gonna share Canva here and get those slides going. I'm gonna put in present. I don't want to put in this type of present mode though. I want present and presenter. Perfect. I love it. Full screen mode. And got it. Cool. So we're going to talk tonight about muscle as an organ. And yes, muscle is an organ. You're like, I think I know that. Muscle is an organ, right? Like the musculoskeletal system. Yeah, it's a system of a body. But I'm here to propose muscle as an actual organ, like your heart or your lungs. So, first of all, I want to say you guys know that my heart for you all is to have as much beautiful, healthy muscle mass as humanly possible because of how protective it actually is for the lives that you want to live long term. And I also want to say it's okay to want to look strong. It's okay to want more muscle to be aesthetically pleasing. Those desires are absolutely not shallow and they're completely and utterly human. But I also want you to understand that you are choosing the long path, right? And I'm going to tell you too why that is the best choice you can absolutely make. Because muscle takes time to build, it is not going to happen overnight. And I'm going to let you know all of the reasons today why the time that you're putting into it is worth it. Okay. So, first of all, this is the slide we're going to spend the most time on here. And this is why I'm going to tell you muscle is an active organ in your body, and it actually helps with a ton of things that maybe you didn't realize. And it's going to contribute to a lot of chronic disease risk mitigation if you have enough. So I want to actually just walk you through what muscle actually does in the body because it's doing a lot more than just helping you move your appendages or lift weights. And we'll go through each four of these bullet points here. So blood sugar or glucose. Muscle is one of the largest reservoirs for free-floating blood sugar in your whole body. After you eat, muscle is going to pull in that blood sugar or that glucose out of the bloodstream, and it's going to either use it for energy immediately or it's going to store it locally in the muscle belly as glycogen. So when you have more muscle, you have more places for all of that free floating blood sugar in your bloodstream to land. And it's going to be more safely stored there in the muscle rather than staying in the bloodstream and wreaking a bunch of havoc, causing like diabetes and other things that can come from that as well. So that's why blood sugar issues aren't necessarily just about cutting out sugar or cutting carbs or what your insulin responses are like. They're also about whether or not you have enough muscle to handle what's coming in. All right, next, cholesterol and fats. Cholesterol works kind of in a similar way. Your liver makes cholesterol and packages fats to send through the bloodstream. And all of those fats have to go to these different targets. But sometimes we make too much, especially genetically, some people's livers just kind of make too much cholesterol. But muscle activity can actually help determine how long those fat particles, if there's too many of them, stay circulating in your system. So when muscle is active and present, fats get cleared more efficiently. And when muscle mass or activity is low, fats might hang around longer. And this can even happen in people who look thin or may be healthy by weight. So that's why strength training often can improve cholesterol markers even when body weight doesn't change. Muscle is also your body's protein reserve. So we're going to talk about this next bullet here, amino acid reserve. Um, During illness and injury, or stress, any kind of stress to your body, specifically, illness or injury is a really good example here, or surgery post-op, your body can pull protein or amino acids from your muscle tissue to repair other tissues in your body, which is really freaking cool. And it can help you survive a big, tremendous stressor to your body, like the flu or something like that when you're older. Okay, so if that muscle reserve is low, recovery might actually be slower from any kind of injury or surgery or illness, and overall resilience long term is going to be lower. Muscle actually gives your body options when life happens. That is why I'm calling it your reserve. And as you can see, muscle doesn't just move your body, it also talks to the rest of your system. So when you use your muscles, especially when you challenge them and keep them healthy, they send messages throughout your whole body. And an active, well-trained muscular system says to your body, hey, we use this in our body. We're using this organ. We need more capacity. So then your body builds more muscle. And when your muscle mass or activity level is low, your system gets a different message. We don't actually need this much reserve, so you end up losing capacity because come to find out, keeping that capacity is rather expensive. And if there's a way your body can preserve energy, if you're telling it to, then muscle is probably going to be the first thing to go. The kicker here is that the body always adapts to the message it hears more often. So what inputs are you giving to your body? Are you giving it inputs that we're using these muscles, we need to keep them? Or are you giving them, your body, the input of like, we don't need this anymore, or we can use this energy elsewhere? And this is why health can't necessarily just be reduced to weight or like whatever the scale says or your appearance and what you look like. Because you can be totally thin and metabolically stressed all at the same time, and you can look healthy and still lack that muscular reserve. Muscle is just one of the main ways our body builds margin, margin for life, margin for stress, margin for illness, and margin for aging. Next slide. Why does this matter? Why does this matter for women specifically? So now that you understand why muscle does, like what muscle is doing in your body, and those are just a handful of things, guys. I probably could have kept going, but I didn't want to talk for like 45 minutes. So that you mostly understand like a kind of bird's eye view of what muscle is doing in your body. Why does it actually matter so much more for women? First of all, women pay a much, much higher price when muscle is lost. When muscle declines, especially as we age, we see as women faster changes in blood sugar control, cholesterol handling, bone mineral density, or bone strength, and physical resilience as well. And this isn't because women are weaker. It's just because muscle plays such a huge central role in regulating our entire system. And we generally start with less and we lose more along the way. And when we lose that muscle, our system, again, like I said, is going to have much, much less margin for recovery and illness and handling stress. And that loss actually often happens quietly, long before it shows up as pathology. Um, if I had like a nickel for every woman that comes to me and says, "Oh my gosh, I got my first bone mineral scan, my first DEXA scan, which for some reason in our guidelines here in the US is 65, should be your first bone mineral density scan. Your first DEXA scan is at 65, which is crazy because most women have already not had estrogen for like 15 years at this point. So it's not surprising to me for so many reasons that most of these women are getting their very first DEXA scan and they already have osteoporosis or they're osteopenic. That is because we need to be looking much sooner and we need to be building and protecting much more, but we just don't talk about that as women. Okay. So now we're going to talk about why we as women lose more muscle along the way. And yep, maybe you guessed it. It's because menopause, right? So we start with less muscle just because we're smaller than men. But then we have this significant event in our lives where we just lose all of our hormones. We precipitously lose estrogen, and all of that buffer to maintain that muscle mass more easily just disappears like that over a very short period of time. And hormonal transitions don't break our bodies, but they absolutely expose gaps. And if muscle hasn't already been protected earlier in life, then these hormonal shifts are going to be felt more and make those gaps in our muscle mass and our bone mineral density so much more obvious. And that's when like women are told things like your metabolism slowed down, or this is just aging, or this is just what happens now, right? We've all probably heard that from a doctor or heard of somebody who's heard that from their literal primary care provider. But actually, what's most likely really happening is that the system no longer has enough muscle to handle this stress, to buffer this change. It just has less margin. This actually has been a problem that's been cooking for quite some time. It's not that your body's no longer responding to the things it used to respond to, the things that it used to respond to necessarily. It's that your body probably was never actually responding to those things that you used to be doing well in the first place. And we just start feeling it so much more when we start losing all of our hormones. And here's the really, really doubly interesting part of this equation here is that women generally aren't trained for muscle on purpose. We have all been taught to. Maybe like little Gen Zs are getting a different script, but at least everyone in this program was taught to get smaller, stay lighter, avoid bulk, take up less space. And those messages didn't come from a biology book, guys. Newsflash. They came from society. They came from culture. Women are absolutely not fragile. We are actually so anti-fragile. We are very robust. We are not dainty. We are durable humans. Like, absolutely. We just need to learn how to see ourselves that way, even though society has painted us otherwise. Okay. We have been conditioned to undertrain for health span. So what if the issue this whole time hasn't necessarily been our complicated bodies, right? I've heard that from a doctor before. I heard that when I was going through PA school. Women's bodies are complicated, right? What if that has never been the issue? What if the issue has been the expectations that were placed on our bodies that have been very different from the expectations of men's biologically and socially? But Stevie, women usually live longer than men, right? I'm going to address this. Yes, on average, women do live longer than men, but lifespan and health span are not the same thing. Women tend to survive longer, but they often spend more of those later years dealing with frailty, disability, metabolic disease, dementia, and loss of independence. So women don't necessarily age better, they just simply age longer. And part of this is, biology. Women have some built-in survival advantages, which I'm not going to get into right now, but part of this has also been what we were talking about earlier. Is how women have been trained. Men have historically been encouraged to build muscle, lift heavy, maintain physical capacity throughout adulthood and adolescence, and women have historically been encouraged to stay light, avoid muscle, and prioritize appearance over capacity. So living longer with less muscle actually just means, as we've been talking, and you might have put this together, it means living longer with less margin, which is why we see higher rates of frailty and disability in older women compared to older men. It's not because we are weaker, it's because we were not trained culturally to protect muscle as a health asset. But like longevity without capacity isn't the goal, right? What actually matters here is how much margin your body has as life happens. Margin is your buffer, your reserve, the space between handling life and being overwhelmed by it. And muscle is one of the primary ways that body builds that margin. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because it's all a little bit of a recap. But like we talked about, when something goes wrong, such as an injury, an illness, a surgery, or like a hard season in life, muscle is what helps determine how well you will bounce back. It gives your body the raw material and physical capacity to recover from things. So, two people can have the same diagnosis or setback and have very different outcomes. And this is largely because one might have more reserve, and that reserve is muscle. Muscle also gives us the flexibility to utilize energy. More muscle means the body can switch between fuel sources way more easily, between sugar or glucose, fat, and between stored energy such as glycogen, right? That stored sugar in our muscle and in our liver. And without backing the system up when it switches over. So we have a lot more energy, access to energy. So that might be why some of you started eating more protein and building a little bit more muscle. And you're like, oh my gosh, my energy levels are like night and day from when we started, right? It's usually the very first thing that I see happen with people when they start this program. But when muscle is low, the system becomes less adaptable, and that's when we see things like blood sugar swings, prediabetes, full-blown diabetes, cholesterol issues, and energy crashes without weight gain. And finally, muscle is what protects independence as we age. Getting up off the floor, carrying groceries, traveling, living life on your own terms, those are strength dependent skills. And this is why strength predicts independence better than the scale ever will be able to. I'm going to say that again. Strength predicts independence better than the scale will ever be able to. Just like want you guys to let that sit for a little bit. The good news is building protective muscle is not complicated, and you're already doing it. Okay. It comes down to three things, and we're doing all of them in this program. Number one, mechanical tension. First, muscle has to be challenged. That doesn't mean chaos or maxing out. It just means giving the muscle a reason to stay, a reason to grow, a reason to stay healthy. Which is why, after early consistency in all of your programs, once I see, okay, we have some stability built in, we are able to lift a little bit without injury, you will all graduate to training with reps in reserve. And that is pushing to a certain fatigue level to ensure we are training for mechanical tension. Mechanical tension is the signal that tells the body that this tissue matters. Remember how that was important? If we tell the body this tissue matters, then it's going to build it. It's going to build that capacity. And second, the body has to be supported with adequate protein and energy. Muscle is expensive tissue, like we said before. If the body doesn't have enough protein or energy, it's not going to keep that muscle tissue around. It's not going to build it. This is why chronic undereating can quietly erode strength, even when workouts look consistent. And finally, recovery. Muscle doesn't build during the workout. It actually builds after. Crazy, right? So we need to break down that muscle tissue. We're creating those little micro tears when we're working out. And then after that, our body like sends these little inflammation, like it's over here, like repairs that tissue and it grows back stronger. So rest, sleep, and spacing hard sessions out are part of the process of building muscle, not a lack of discipline. That's why we are building your programs out the way that they are. So building muscle isn't necessarily about doing more, right? It's about sending a clear signal, supporting the system, and then letting the body respond and adapt. When you do these three steps consistently, the benefits don't just add up, they compound over time. Now, that was like all of the low-hanging science fruit, but I want to pause here for just a second. You might have noticed some like undertones of this in the entire kind of chat that we just had. But underneath a lot of this is an unspoken question from a lot of women. And that is, do I actually want muscle or do I just want to look thin? And I want you to be really honest with yourself here when you answer that question. Like inside of your body, ask yourself right now, do I really want muscle or do I just want to look thin? There's no judgment in this. I just want you to observe what's coming up in you, like right now, when you hear that question. And if the answer is thin, I think it's absolutely worth asking why, right? Like, why is that what my first inclination is to answer this question with? And I want to leave you guys with this. Thinness has been marketed to women as health, as discipline, as control, and worthiness, even. But thinness doesn't guarantee strength, it doesn't guarantee resilience, and it certainly doesn't guarantee capacity. A thin body can still struggle to handle stress, illness, injury, and aging. So it's fair to ask, is looking thin actually the goal, or is feeling capable the thing that you're really after? And I want you to think about that this week. But also, muscle isn't about totally rejecting aesthetics either, right? Strong bodies often look strong, and that's okay. In fact, that's freaking awesome. The difference is muscle is built for function first, and then appearance will follow later. And like I said at the beginning, this is the longer path. This is the longer path to the body you dream of. And it is the only path to the body that you really want. So when you shift the goal from looking acceptable to being capable, I think that your whole mindset can shift around some of this stuff and everything will change for you. Okay, that's where margin comes from. That's where resilience comes from. And that, my friends, is why muscle matters. So this week, I want you to notice where you're still maybe measuring yourself by appearance instead of capability in a way that might be affecting you negatively. So this is kind of some optional homework, okay? Ask yourself, where am I still measuring myself by appearance instead of capability in a way that might be negatively affecting me in the long run? And then ask yourself, where did that belief come from? Who benefits from me staying small? What would I train for if my goal was strength instead? Okay, you don't have to change anything yet. You don't have to judge yourself at all. I just want you to reflect and notice what comes up over the course of this next week about that kind of stuff as we all continue to train for more muscle. All right, that's all I have for you guys, but I do want to take some questions, and I have landed at 5:58, which might be record time getting through these presentations. Guys, my friend Amanda's here. I call her Bug, and it's weird when I call her Amanda, so just allow this to happen. But Bug, do you have any questions?
I don't. Thank you.
You're super welcome. I'll make sure I get this replay up and out to you guys by tomorrow morning. Bye, good night.